Sweeney Todd the Revival is happening right now. And if you are on the East Coast, this is the show. Like this, to me, this is the show, the revival to go and see. Hello, darlings, and welcome to Performance Perspective, where we watch different performances and then we share our perspectives. Now, if you're new here, hey, I'm Care Darling, and if you have a love for musicals, musical theater, then you'll like this channel, so don't forget to like and subscribe. But today we are reading an article from New York Times about the revival of Sweeney Todd, and I find it interesting. These are the kind of things that I find myself creating on this channel, and I never know if people actually like it, but I don't know. I find it interesting, so maybe you will too. So it is a New York Times article. The link is in the description if you want to go ahead and read it yourself. But yeah, let's jump in and share our thoughts. Who needs a shave? Sweeney Todd is back. Less is more was famously one of the composer Stephen Sondheim's aesthetic credos, but in the case of Sweeney Todd, the demon barber of Fleet Street, the bloody quasi-operatic 1979 revenge tragedy that many consider his masterpiece, Sondheim went big in a way he seldom had before and never did again. In the size of the orchestra and performing ensemble, in the sheer quantity of music written for the score, and in the dramatic freight and body count borne by the tale of murderous Victorian-era barber. That was a lot of words, sorry guys. Sweeney Todd has accordingly joined the repertoire of many opera companies, where it holds its own with such 20th century titans as the Gershwins, Porgy and Bess, and Britain's The Turn of the Screw. But in the theater, Sweeney has found a notable success by getting a haircut. Since the original Broadway production closed in 1980, an artistic success, winning the Tony Award for Best Musical, but a financial disappointment, recouping just shy of 60% of its cost. Its two Broadway revivals were trimmed down renditions. The first, staged in the Roundette Circle and Square in 1989, earned the nickname Teeny Todd for its small ensemble and 3-synthesizer score, while John Doyle's 2005 production memorably stripped the show down to a 10-member company of actors, musicians. So listen, the article will get to it, but something, that happened in the theater world was, of course, the pandemic. And when coming back, a lot of people, are trying to save money, and you can't go out and see as many shows. Like even movies, like movie theaters are closing. But the thing about theater, it would be a huge disappointment if that went away. That's a creative outlet for so many people, whether it's them performing or them just being entertained. And there's something so magical about, having people around and enjoying a show or not enjoying a show altogether, people who need people. So as far as the shows that have been coming out, yeah, they seem a bit lackluster in some areas because they're not able to afford this grand thing because people can't come or are not able to. So the stakes are high for the new Broadway revival starring Josh Groban and Annalee Ashford. Okay, I'm excited. I love Josh Groban. I had an alarm that I would wake up to. I think it was Brave. You want to run away, but you can't say so. Ooh. Josh Groban in anything, I'm happy with. I love him. I really do. I think he's so talented. I think he's funny. And I know it's not a sense of like, no one's like, that's Sweeney Todd. Hilarious. Something I was a little like, wait a minute, let's think about this, is when I think of the character Sweeney, I do think of someone much older, to the point that when he comes back into London, people don't recognize him because he looks ghoulish and like haunted and stuff. Like you may recognize him through the eyes. I guess in my head with Josh Groban, I'm like, wow, Sweeney, you aged great. And Annalee Ashford, when is this woman going to have a household name? Like, if you don't know her through the Broadway scene, you might know her in the American true crime shows. Like, she's so good. And also, this is gonna sound really silly, I love her nose. I think her nose is something that a lot of, people would fix. And when I saw her nose, I was like, I love it. I think she's gorgeous. I hope she doesn't touch it. Okay, sorry. Moving on. So the stakes are high for the new Broadway revival starring Josh Groban and Annalee Ashford, now in previews at the Lund Fontaine Theater, where it is scheduled to open on March 26th. It's happening! With a capitalization of $13.5 million, a company of 25 actors and an orchestra of 26 players. This is Sweeney! It hasn't been seen or heard on Broadway for 43 years. We're used to Sweeney Todd deconstructed. Can it be reconstructed? I think I was already excited about this show, but this is what is making me go, yes. It's not just, wow, look at the performers that are coming in that are saving the show. No, it's also about the orchestra that's coming in, so you get the full, I want to go. I want to sit in the theater. I want to be there and hear it all. But there is a plentiful paying audience, not only for the show stars, who include Gaten Matarazzo and Jordan Fisher, but also for Sondheim himself. I don't want to butcher his name anymore, but he was in Stranger Things. And also, I saw him live at the Hollywood Bowl when watching Charlie and the Chocolate Factory years ago. And I remember thinking, oh, this guy can sing, and he had great stage presence, and he knows musical theater. So I found myself like, oh, that's cool. Jordan Fisher, awesome. So again, I'm so excited because this isn't just one of those shows where they bring in one person where it's like, this is the star and you only want to go see this one person. Think like, this is no like offense to them. This is like obviously a tactic that they're using, but think, like Hugh Jackman in The Music Man, right? More people were attracted to go see the musical for him versus thinking of like Sutton Foster and the other Broadway stars in there that we know. There's also Funny Girl, like they had Beanie at first, then they had Leah Michele, and so you were necessarily following them versus, like Ramin and other people in the show. But in this, the star power in this is so great, but it's also not overwhelming. Josh Groban, Annalee, Jordan Fisher, the Stranger Things guy. Please don't make fun of me, okay? His death in 2021 led to fresh I can't pronounce it, for his unparalleled legacy. But that season's company revival lost money, and last year's popular Into the Woods, now a national tour, has not announced whether it has recouped. The idea of the revival germinated with Groban, a pop classical singer who made his Broadway debut in 2016 in Natasha Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812. He approached Thomas Kail, the Tony-winning director of Hamilton, about tackling Sweeney with a full orchestra, and Kail enlisted Alex Lacamoire, the Hamilton music director, and the choreographer Stephen Hoggett, A Beautiful Noise. During a phone interview 2 days before previews began, Groban said Sweeney had been on his wish list since he was in junior high and first saw a mid-1900s production by Los Angeles East-West Players with Orville Mendoza in the lead. It was also his introduction to the work of Sondheim, who teamed with Hugh Wheeler, the show's writer. It was a kind of secret language that I just got, Groban recalled of the early exploration of Sondheim's musicals. Even at a young age, when I still needed to grow into so many of the themes he was writing about, I just seemed to understand it on a weird unspoken level. Listen, yeah, you know what? You know how there's the, what's it called, with Shakespeare, I know, I am bionic pentameter. I don't know. What is it called? Let me know down in the comments. There is a certain way of, speaking when you are doing a Shakespeare show. And I feel like in a way, it's very similar to Sondheim. There is a certain way to sing his songs and perform his shows. So I get you, Groban. I understand. That's actually one of the reasons I was attracted to doing it, Groban insisted. He said he figured that the way to earn a connection with the audience that's frightening on a deeper level than, hey, that's the monster in the room, is to find whatever humanity there is between that guy and whoever's sitting in the audience. Absolutely, good take. I mean, if you're ever playing a certain character that doesn't have the best qualities, you as a performer isn't to go in and judge the character that you're playing, because I don't know, then it turns a little biased. You have to understand, why did this person do the things, why does the person do the things that they do? For his part, Cale said he's leaning into the show's strains of longing, not only those of the embittered Sweeney, but also from his helpmate and desultory romantic partner, the pie shop profiteer Mrs. Lovett, played by Ashford. What we're really keen to explore, said Cale, is, can you make something thrilling, something entertaining, something hilarious, something scary, and can we also break your heart? Ashford, who played Dot in the 2017 revival of Songtime in James Lapine's Sunday in the Park with George, which did recoup its investment, is on a similar wavelength. I've always thought of it as a great love story, though, maybe one-sided, she said, without ignoring Lovett's depravity. It is she, after all, who suggests grinding Sweeney's victims into meat pies in the tour de force duet A Little Priest. Asher said she is keying in on Mrs. Lovett's unrequited passion for Sweeney, as well as her maternal affection for the orphan Toby. Okay, this is random, but I always go back and forth about Mrs. Lovett and her love for Toby, because I think it wasn't until I watched, I think it's still on Broadway HD, but the original Sweeney Todd with Angela Lansbury, at the ending where they're looking for Toby, that was the first time where I thought to myself, oh my gosh, because of her love for Sweeney, she's willing to be like, you know, who cares about that boy? I'm gonna let him go. I've been watching Sweeney as in the Johnny Depp version, but Helena Bonham, sorry if I mispronounced the name, but you know, during that time of filming, she was pregnant. So I can see why she portrayed it like a love and taking care of this boy, and in the end she was like, wow, we need to find him, make sure he's okay. But let me tell you, that Angela Lansbury, that ending just messed me up. Like, oh my gosh, I would stay up late, like, oh my gosh, like thoughts. Not to mention finding connection to the role's originator, Angela Lansbury. You feel her breath, her warmth, and her humor all over the piece. Absolutely, Ashford said. Indeed, the imprint of the original production, memorialized in the telefilm recording of a 1980 tour stop in Los Angeles, is unavoidable. That's particularly the case for a production that's returning to Jonathan Tunick's original orchestrations and boasts a towering set by Mimi Lien that, like Eugene Lee's original set, employs a working crane and moving pieces ringed with cast iron staircases. But Cale, who is friendly with Harold Prince, the director of the show's original production, is intent on marketing out his own territory. That production was influenced by Brecht. It was about alienation, distancing, Cale said. That approach was enormously effective for them, and it's quite different from what we're going to try to do. Ooh. See, this doesn't make me feel like, no, you should do it how they did it. No. This makes me excited to be like, all right, so what are you doing? Like, okay, I'm curious. Whereas Prince found his hook in the grime and tumult of the Industrial Revolution, Cale and his team, which also includes the costume designer Emilio Sosa and the lighting designer Natasha Katz, are looking to find beauty in the underbelly and in the grotesque, Cale said. Inspired by the play's stark dichotomy between those above and those below, they are trying to embody its level and hierarchies. Leon, whose scenic designs for shows like The Great Comet and Octoroon are typically characterized by surprising use of three-dimensional space, was struck by the show's references to the Great Black Pit, the Hole in the Ground, the Vermin. this kind of characterization of that underclass population of Victorian London as being like sewer rats living underground. Listen, if you've heard me talk about the musical Cupcake, this is why I do get excited about the frosting of the show, because it really is something that can embellish it and you could get more excited about. And hearing all of this, I'm like, yes, I love symbolism, or when people use symbolism within the costumes and the lights and the set. A lot of like, show me, don't tell me. And so I find myself getting excited. In addition to the gantry crane and mechanized set pieces, Leanne's set is framed by a brick archway and iron bridge that could serve in a production of Oliver. Sosa's costumes, too, are stressing both beauty and division. If you look historically at the clothing, pop off, let's go. The cuts, the silhouettes are very similar between those of less means and more affluent people, Sosa noted. Everyone has a top hat. It's the condition of your hat that's variable. That sets where you stand in the scheme of economics. This makes me excited because it's like there's attention to detail in these things. There's thought, process. The new production's larger scale also means the return of the trick chair and blood bags. Blood. Some past revivals are artfully stylized the show's onstage murders and finesse the mechanics of Sweeney's purpose-built chair. Its blood effects are being created by Jeremy Chernick, who helped Elsa's world transform to ice and Frozen, and stocked the blood cannons for American Psycho. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but yes, I'm so excited. And when I spoke to Hoggett about the show's movements and transitions, he told me, I spent all day yesterday being slid down the chair into a pit so I could show all the actors how not to bang your chin and where the floor is. It was great. We were offering $5 a ride. The extent to which Sweeney Todd is itself a kind of thrill ride, a brilliant machine for delivering scares and laughs, remains a question. Sondheim was clear about his inspiration. When he saw Christopher Bond's blank verse play in London in 1973, itself adapted from a hoary English legend, the composer saw an opportunity to indulge his interesting affinities for the gothic horror, melodrama, and grand guignol. And in later years, he was on record as savoring intimate versions of Sweeney, not least because they hewed closer to his original vision. But there's also something else in the show's DNA that may account for its endurance and may explain why, despite Sondheim's expressed preference for smaller stagings, he was apparently eager to see Cale's production. He died just days before he had been scheduled to attend a reading of the show. Aww. By the way, I did a video about Sondheim, the godfather of Broadway, and I find his life so interesting. So if you're interested in that, I will link the video in the description. But yeah, when Sondheim enlisted Prince, who was initially ambivalent about the show's melodrama and horror until he sparked to its larger social themes, the composer was inexorably drawn into writing something with more epic heft than he might have originally imagined. As Ashford put it, every time you work on a great piece, you're always exploring an author's work from that moment in their life. I always thought Sunday in the Park was an extension of Steve at a time in his life when he was really examining himself as an artist and what art meant to him. In this piece where he was in his life, I can't speak for him, but it feels like he and Hal Prince were setting the world on fire, and he was like, here's everything I got. I can't wait to show it to you. You know what? This reminds me of Lin-Manuel Miranda, right? Where he was working in the Heights. You put a lot of yourself in it. You do what you know. So if Sondheim was putting himself as an artist, thinking of, Sunday in the Park of George, Lin-Manuel Miranda did that. And then once they were, successful with that, it's almost as if the next show they work on, they're like, all right, passion project, where you wonder like, wait a minute, what does this have to do with your life at all, or things like that? And it's like, no, it's just something that they love and are obsessed with. And they're like, let's go. So I find this cool. There may be something even more personal at the show's bloody core that speaks to its emotional size. If it's not its physical scale, when Songtime played a bit of the score for Judy Prince, Hal's wife, she was startled and told him, "Steve, it's the story of your life." I once asked Songtime what she might have meant, and he replied by drawing an analogy between Sweeney's vengeful murders and the works of art inspired by his sense of having been wronged as a young man. Songtime had an infamously stormy childhood. Okay, again, I say go ahead and check my video about his upbringing, but also, if you know, do you know who he was mentored by? I'm just saying, and that has to do a lot with, how he became so involved with songwriting, composing, and musicals. The clues can be read in the music. The harmonic palette of the Sweeney score was influenced by the film music of Bernard Herrmann, an American neo-romantic who brought utter emotional conviction to his work. Whether he was accompanying dueling skeletons or capering psychodramas of Alfred Hitchcock, the yearning and anguish Songtime poured into the music of Sweeney Todd may finally be as telling as any of the bloody action in the script. Tunick, who said his original orchestrations leaned on the film music masters heavily, knew Songtime well, whether Sweeney Todd expressed something darkly personal about his colleague. Tunick couldn't say, but he did note significantly all of his other shows were brought to him by somebody else, whether it was Hal Prince or James Lapine or whoever. This is the only one of Songtime's shows that was his idea. Anyways, darlings, that's it for today's episode. I would love to know your thoughts on what did you think of that article? Because I was already excited about Sweeney Todd, and now I usually don't get FOMO, but I'm getting it. Whoever gets to see the show, I hope there is a pro shot. There needs to be a pro shot, please. Just please. I want to see the blood packs. I want to see it all. And yes. Love to know your thoughts. If you're still here by the end of the video, please don't forget to subscribe and like this video. And without further ado, take care, darling.